Welcome to Conversations. I'm Suresh Kochatal. The Union government has okayed the Unified Pension Scheme, which assures 50% of the basic pay as pension. After dilly-dallying for a long while, the Modi government has finally decided for what is now called the Unified Pension Scheme or UPS. With the Unified Pension Scheme, the NDA government seeks to bring the benefits on par with the old pension scheme, which they had junked, but they had to bring it back in another form. This move is basically to stop the opposition's bid to revert to the earlier regime in the states governed by them. We saw this in certain Congress states and even the other opposition-ruled states. With this move, the NDA government will try and mop up the electoral dividends in the ensuing assembly polls. The Cabinet Secretary Designate TV Somanathan, who chaired the committee that reviewed the NPS, said that following the announcements that the government is contribution towards the UPS will now rise to 18.5%. And that's a big number, because that against the current of 14% is a jump of almost 4.5%. The UPS scheme, to start with, will bring significant benefits to 23 lakh central government employees. The announcement and overhaul of the 20-year-old national pension scheme will include a higher contribution by the government and a guaranteed payout of almost 50% of the average basic pay drawn during the last 12 months of the tenure of the employee. The decision also opens up another factor. It opens up the doors for states to offer the same UPS, which is basically a contributory scheme, and which will take the count of beneficiaries from now to 90 lakhs employees. The scheme will enable employees to get a one-time option to switch over, and that introducing an inflation adjustment that will be done through the dearness relief that is provided to many central government employees. Those opting for the UPS will get an assured payment of 50% of the payout, as I said before, if they complete 25 years of their tenure. The payout proportion will be lower for government employees who have not put in the full tenure but have done a few years in any government job. Basically, the pension assured is around 10,000 rupees. Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi said that the Unified Pension Scheme will ensure a dignity and, of course, a financial security to government employees who, he said, were the backbone of his government and had done excellent work. The Prime Minister posted this on X and said he is proud of all the government employees for their hard work towards the country's development. The decision is targeted as a key political constituency, and the government employees across states will now, and especially in Delhi, which has a huge number of government employees, goes for voting in the 2025 assembly elections. On their part, employees are required to chip in with a contribution of 10% of their basic pay and DEA. Of course, Cabinet Secretary Designate TV Somanathan said that there are many factors at play, and there will be an actuarial calculation every 3 years to ensure that the liability does not go out of control and does not remain unfunded, as was happening in the case of the old pension scheme, where the government had to bear the entire liability without any employee contribution. But now there is a 10% contribution of the basic plus DA, as I had elaborated before. Elaborating the 5 pillars of UPS, which will be implemented from April 2025. Union Minister for Railways and Information Technology, Ashwini Vaishnav, made it a point that the minimum pension now offered will be 10,000 for those who work for 10 years. And the family pension, more importantly, is now pegged at 60% of the deceased government employees' pension. That is a good jump there. In addition, a lump sum payment at the time of the retirement of the employee, which is 10% of the pay and dearness allowance which is there, for every 6 months of service that they have put in is also provided for. For those who complete 30 years of service, around 6 months of emoluments will be given as a lump sum amount at the time of their retirement, and that is the payment that will be in addition to the gratuity that will be paid out. So, it's an additional amount that is going to come in. The scheme, which will be extended to those who have retired, will result in an additional expenditure of 6,250 crore due to a higher contribution by the government, and of course another 800 crores towards payment of arrears, which will all total up to around 7,059 crores. This is something that the union government will have to bear every year. The move is fiscally prudent as it's a funded contributory scheme. The only difference in the changes made to the new scheme is to give an assurance to government employees and not to leave it to the market forces. This is because the government employees were scared that if something goes wrong in the market, their entire pension scheme will go for a 6. And that has been reassured with this scheme, that the market will not wipe out their level of pensions. The unified pension scheme, which is under review for almost 18 months, has sought to address certain key points and concerns of employees, especially the risk of lower pensions due to market forces, as I mentioned before. The fluctuations keep happening, as we all know, and the total corpus that is available right now is around 11 lakh crores of the government employees. Those who joined, especially after 2004, and had invested in government securities. But more importantly, that's not the point. The point is also about certain governments wanting to go ahead, as I mentioned before, especially in the Congress-ruled states. We saw that happening during the Ashok Gehlot government in Rajasthan. In fact, the Congress-ruled states were promising that they will implement the schemes. Even Karnataka said they will not. They have not done it so far. Himachal Pradesh said they will do it. They have not done it so far. And of course, Telangana is not even talking about it. In fact, Congress even took it out of the manifesto of the Lok Sabha elections, which I will actually take up later. But the point is very simple. Is this a fiscally prudent move? Yes, according to many people, including Balram Bhagat, CEO and whole-time director of UTI Pension Fund, which is one of the largest fund managers. But as I said before, if you revert to the old pension scheme, the entire contribution comes from the government side. And the Congress party, after promising it, said that they will implement it, did not do it because they knew that they will go bankrupt. Punjab is a classic case where the government is going bankrupt, having reverted to the OPS. In Telangana, the government employees are on a war path, wanting to switch over to OPS. But now, as per the latest statements, they are ready to even go for the UPS. But the Revanth Reddy government has to take a call on it. In fact, BJP alleges that the Congress merely announced these schemes and kept them under an illusion of implementation. The BJP claims that in contrast, Prime Minister Modi has walked his talk and implemented a scheme after extensive consultations for over 18 months. This also ensures intergenerational equity, which is what the main thing is all about. In fact, Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw was at pains to point out that this cabinet decision is not a political one, but it is obviously a one. But it is rooted in economics, and that is very clear, because had it gone back to the old OPS, that would have killed the entire scheme and that would have bankrupted the government. In fact, what would happen if BJP had announced this ahead of the general elections of 2024? Maybe there would have been a difference. We don't know, especially in Delhi, but BJP anyway won in Delhi. BJP always claims that Prime Minister Modi has gone beyond electoral politics. Decisions are taken in public interest. It is a well thought out decision after extensive consultations, as I mentioned before, and it is not just an off the cuff stuff. It has got nothing to do with elections, yes, but then the point is whether the central government or state government, whoever implements it, is it a politically motivated? BJP says no, Congress is silent, and that is what is the most important thing, because the Congress has not said no to it, because they also know that it is a fiscally prudent move. Okay, Now, the government employees, incidentally, who are going to switch to the uniform pension scheme that is now going to come up from April 2005, what can they hope for? They can hope for a significant increase in their pension. And why does that happen? Because the government's contribution is set to increase from 14% to 18.5%. Now, that increase would be around 19% for those who join on a monthly salary of 50,000 and will see an annual increase of 3% with their corpus seeing a compounded increase of annual growth around 8%, which is lower than what all these three fund managers, SBI, LIC and UTI had promised. We will have to see how things pan out from here, because this is just a start, and once it's implemented in 2005, we will know, 2025 rather, we will know where it goes from there. Since its inception in 2008, the highest return for the securities, as I was mentioning before, was around 9.75%, which was offered to the central government employees by SBI. While this is all happening, well, let us look at certain other things that are taking place. What will switching mean for those getting returns from the NPS? According to many fund managers, it's better for them to stay invested in the market forces, which will get them a better return. But government employees, being government employees and an Indian mentality, they want a 50% safe option of the last drawn basic plus DA. And that is what the most important thing is, because the government employees had 3 investment options, but then they were not taking it up because there was a lot of pressure on the market forces. And if the markets crash, but they were investing a big time in government securities, which won't go wrong in any case, which is about 65%. And 15% was in equities, and the remaining was in corporate debt. The first and the last ones are pretty safe. Only the 15% in equities was an issue because the markets keep fluctuating. But the market is already on high, and I'm sure from the time it was pledged about, say, 20 years ago, the market has really jumped, really jumped. And that obviously means the corpus has gone up, as I said, 11 lakh crores. So that's a big amount. A lot of the government loans that are given out to different state governments also comes from this. So there is a safety in that factor of the government securities, or what is popularly called G-Secs. And going forward, what will happen now? Now the question is, what happens if an employee stays invested, or what happens if the employee moves to a new pension scheme? And that is what we are seeing. In fact, Congress, according to the BJP, has omitted the OPS in the Lok Sabha manifesto. Yeah, they did omit it because they knew the problem they were getting into, because the 3 states where they lost, they had actually promised it: Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh. But then it didn't happen. In fact, in Chhattisgarh, their own government had promised it. Rajasthan, as I said, the Ashok Gehlot government had promised it, but still they didn't win the elections. They knew that OPS was not a major election issue, but then it does make a difference. So let's take the question is, what does it do to the BJP? In fact, that is the most important thing, because for the BJP, it's the Delhi election that is important. And Delhi has a huge number of government employees who are working there, plus a lot of the government employees who retire actually settle down in Delhi. They, with their families, make a big voting chunk. And the BJP has not been able to dismantle Arvind Kejriwal from there. And possibly, this is one move that the BJP can do. And definitely, the unified pension scheme, when implemented in April 2025, will have a huge impact on central government employees. And implemented, if for the states, it will have a similar fillip effect. And that's most important thing, because this scheme is for those who joined after 2004. Because the others one are already on the old pension scheme. And definitely the Union Cabinet's decision to implement this unified pension scheme is a well thought out, as I said before. Because the government was working on it for a long time, revamping and working on the NPS to see where they could come up with a better solution. And Cabinet Secretary T.V. Somanathan was a head of that committee. And definitely, as we say, BJP is going to use it for their own benefit. There's no dispute about that. Let us get it very clear. But my question always would be, it's okay, government employees get everything, which is why there's a huge demand for the government jobs, because there is a security of the job. You work or you don't work, you still get paid, you still get your pensions, and that's all there. But private sector is not like that. Private sector is very clear: perform or perish. And definitely the entire carrot before the private sector employees is a better salary than government employees. That is what gets them in. But the question is also the work pressure that is there in the private sector, as we see in many sectors across, be it information technology, pharma, manufacturing, or anything. This is very important, because what the concern always has been said is that, okay, there are some pension schemes which are there, which are done by the kind of various funds, but then that is not enough. A lot of employees, especially in the IT sector and even some in the pharma sector, get stock options, but they're very few. That's only the top line people, or maybe at the maximum senior middle level. But the question is, what about the private sector employees in all? There needs to be a safety net for us in India. We don't have one, especially healthcare. True, Modi ji has increased the Ayushman Bharat coverage to employees above 75, which is a good thing. But the question is, those in the middle sector, those who are just young, or even those who are in the middle age, and those who are going to retire, all the three are going to have a huge tension on their head about healthcare. And definitely there needs to be something that is going to be done for them. And the Modi government's biggest vote bank is this middle class. They've been pretty upset about income tax benefits not being given even in this budget. But the question is, can something like a safety net, one need not go all the way like United Kingdom, where everything is paid for, but the taxation is at a very high level. And the mopping of taxation is also very good. But in our country, very few people pay income tax, but a lot of people, almost everybody, chips in with the goods and services tax, which is GST. There needs to be a way out. Just for government employees who are said to be spoiled for choice is not the right way. There needs to be, across the board, for all Bharat, all citizens of Bharat, a scheme, a safety net which will take care of their needs, basic needs plus healthcare once they retire. And I think the Modi government should listen to what is being said. Thank you for watching. Jai Hind.